If we go into Google Trends and I'm going to type in UFO, this spike, that's last year. And that's when governments around the world started talking about UFOs. UFOs are back in the headlines. It's never been a more exciting time to believe.
America's gripped by UFO hysteria. Unidentified
aerial phenomena or UFOs.
My gosh!
US officials say there's nothing to see here.
There is no indication of aliens.
NASA did not find any evidence that UAP have an extraterrestrial origin.
But does that actually mean anything when 1 in 4 Australians believe there's a government cover-up? I want to get inside the minds of UFO believers. Today, I'm meeting with Jamie and Aspasia Leonarda, who investigate all things paranormal. I don't believe in aliens, but maybe they can change my mind.
Wow.
And this is what it looked like when it went up.
Yeah.
Flying saucers have been seen over Sydney regularly. Not that we can trust the defunct Daily Mirror, but, you know, here's another thing.
Yeah,
Sure.
One of the hardest things for people to cope with is the abduction scenario. It sounds so ludicrous. Where is the evidence for this? But this is a picture from a person that had abduction experiences.
Oh, I see. That's a print.
Yes, that's a thumb there, and there's 1 finger, 2 fingers, 3 fingers. This was actually a really amazing book to read. It's about this woman who was having these horrific visitations at night by aliens. Anything that's anomalous that doesn't fit in the box, we like to look at it before we throw it away and discard it.
Yeah, I think that's a perfectly reasonable philosophy.
Yeah.
Way to approach the world.
There is a massive case that's been well documented in Australia, and that's the case of Westall in 1966 in the School of Melbourne, which had hundreds of eyewitnesses, including a lot of the teachers and the staff.
What all those people saw on that day is still unclear.
I have great respect for science, but I think science should accommodate what people are experiencing. Eyewitness accounts.
But when does it get to the point where you yourself draw a line and say, oh, that's too far for me, or I don't believe this person?
At the end of the day, you need to look at a wide array of material, and you need to use your intuition and what you feel to cherry pick out of it. Don't believe anything absolute, and don't discredit anything absolute. Through the totality of research, speaking to eyewitnesses, going out in the field and investigating, reading other research, I have an overwhelming feeling that there is a massive crack in the way we perceive this reality.
Something that Jamie and Aspasia said again and again was that they'd done their own research. But they didn't present me with any research that I found convincing. A photo of a 3-fingered handprint and second-hand eyewitness accounts just don't do it for me. Maybe I need to hear it straight from the source. Hi, Roger.
Hi, Alfie.
I've come to meet Roger, a former neuroscientist who says he's actually seen a UFO firsthand.
In the mid-70s, I had a UFO sighting on my parents' property, which is just north of here. There's no original photos, but I did a simulation here. One day I was at the bottom dam. It was getting dark, and I saw a light coming in about 300 or 400 metres away. It basically shot down behind the hill, but it lit up the whole area.
So it was this bright?
Yeah. And that's what really frightened me more so than anything. It lit up the night as if it was day for a split second, and it just frightened the bejesus out of me.
Yeah, right. You must have been terrified.
I was. I took off and ran to the farmhouse as quick as I could. My sister said that I looked like white as a ghost and sweating. We're not alone, basically. Where are these anomalous objects coming from?
So you're a former neuroscientist.
Correct, yeah.
Have you ever told colleagues about this experience, and what was their reaction?
It's difficult because if you're not an experiencer, there's a lot of data there that you have to sift through. And so they place it in a box where they say, it's too difficult, or I don't want to know about it, or, I don't believe it.
So you think there might be physical evidence of aliens or UFOs on Earth?
I don't think I know. But with several layers of security, It'd almost take an act of God to actually get that evidence out to the public.
Why do you think that governments would be interested in hiding this kind of evidence?
Basically, it's a paradigm-shifting thing that you've got to adapt to psychologically. As religion comes into this, are we just mistaking God for these entities that we see? Are miracles caused by these entities? You know, a lot of people will be questioning whether God exists.
So it's not just about questioning like Earth and security systems, it's about questioning like bigger spiritual systems as well.
Correct.
Roger is the Australian director of one of the world's largest alien networks, MUFON. They maintain a database of UFO sightings and investigate each one. So how many of these reports do you have in the database?
We've got over 100,000 cases in there at the moment worldwide.
Oh, wow.
So I'd say 5 to 10% of those cases are the really interesting ones where we cannot identify them.
So that's a whopping 5,000 to 10,000 cases that Roger believes hold a UFO promise. So, Roger, how do you actually go about investigating claims of UFOs?
We investigate using scientific methods. If there's physical evidence, we can send that to a laboratory to get analysed. If there's any photographs or videos, we can analyse them. There's a bit of software called Stellarium. You can actually put in a date and a time and a place, and you can actually look at the night sky and determine whether they saw a celestial object.
Okay, so these are all stars here that might be in the back of photos.
Yep. We also use SatView. People sometimes get satellites confused with UFOs. This will enable you to detect any manipulation in the photograph.
Right.
We can actually look at the pixels and see if something's being cloned. You can see these two clouds have been cloned here, and this
right.
of the
so this is
background.
A little bit photoshopped, that one.
Yes, not a little bit, a lot.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So it's kind of your job to try and disprove the reports that are coming through.
Correct.
Roger's account of his UFO sighting was super emotional. Clearly he had been through something and he believed that that was a UFO. I think it was really interesting how when he came across UFO reports as part of this work that he does, he approaches it from the mindset of saying, it's probably not right. And, 90 to 95% of these aren't UFOs. So I think that there is something scientific there. But does that mean that it should be taken more seriously as scientific research? To answer this question, I want to speak to a scientist who says we need to rethink the boundaries of what is and isn't science. He's clearly unconventional. I mean, he legally changed his name to Meow Ludo Disco Gamma Meow Meow. Meow, I have a bit of a confession. I already know who you are based on the fact that you have a travel card chip in your arm, right?
That's right. I got the chip from an Opal card implanted into my hand that allowed me to board trains by just touching my hand against the sensor. You can actually see.
Ooh, can I touch it?
Yeah.
Sorry. I hated that. So, Meow, I've been talking to a lot of UFO researchers. Do you believe in UFOs and aliens?
I think that there probably are unidentified things in the sky. Do I think that they are connected to aliens? I would say not. But there's almost certainly life out there. There might even be life in our solar system.
So I was speaking to a neuroscientist who believes in UFOs and aliens and government cover-ups. Are you surprised that a scientist could believe in this stuff?
It's definitely unusual. I think that people are generally quite distrusting of the government. We have good reason for this. We've got things like PRISM and the NSA, which was a conspiracy theory before it became fact. When you have things like this, you can't write off people being sceptical about the government's story straight away.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
But if they want to claim to be scientists, they have to kind of do the right things that a scientist would. And that would mean having a certain level of skepticism, having a certain level of critical thinking, and having a certain level of requirements for evidence to meet certain thresholds before they would say it's something that they believe.
I mean, in terms of the way that UFOs are talked about, a lot of it is just like purely observational stuff, right? But I mean, also there are people who are researching these accounts and these reports a little bit deeper. Would you say that that is scientific to approach it with this sort of like skeptical mindset and trying to like kind of debunk things around them?
Science is a process and its aim is truth. A lot of what these people are doing is the same thing, but they might not be using the scientific method. Generally, when we do science, we have a hypothesis, we modify something, and we look at how it changes the outcome. When we have data that's already been collected, we can't do that.
Right.
Using the scientific method, we went from no flight to putting a person on the moon in 70 years. You can't deny the power of what that is.
Sure.
And we got there using the scientific method. Is it the only method? No. So if we look at like the generation of antibiotics, this came about because of an accident. So we looked at a petri dish, and there was a ring of inhibition where the bacteria wouldn't grow around where a fungus was. And this wasn't a hypothesis-driven experiment. This was an observational or exploratory-driven study where the exploration was forgetting to do your cleanup on the end of a week.
So maybe science needs to be more open-minded as to how people can actually contribute to it?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
Okay, that was a really
100%.
quick answer, sure.
I think there are a lot of barriers around the practice of science, and I think that science gains more by including more people.
Right.
So, Elfie, do you believe in UFOs and aliens?
Well, that's a really good question. If, like Meow says, discoveries can be made in unexpected ways, then maybe there is something to UFO reports. Although there is one bit that I just can't get past. Government cover-ups.
Do you think the government would try and cover it up?
No. I think it'd be front page news. I think people like me would be covering it. Governments are sieves. They're not holding on to any information.
I think you might be right.
Yeah, I'd like to hope so. I've been surprised to find a whole network of people, that's not the government or NASA, who are looking for UFO answers. And it's really interesting to hear about how knowledge is built and how there are alternative ways to actually practice science. As for whether or not this stuff has made me believe in UFOs anymore, without hard evidence, I guess I'm a little bit skeptical. But if aliens landed tomorrow, that would be super exciting.